But when a part of self is disruptive, it's like a glitch on the inside, then instead of trying to force that to go away. So most of my executive clients will say, make that go away. How do I fix that? How do I stop that? How do I, as if it's like an outlier, something outside of me that I'm fixing and making it go away, instead of where did I learn that and how was that adaptive at that time in my life?
What do you find most often?
With this podcast, what we're trying to do is have real, authentic discourse.
Dr. Crawford, it's great to have you here today. We had a chance to meet, I think, over a dinner probably several weeks ago. And sat next to each other and got to know a little bit more about Enterhealth, and I got to know more about your background and the Crawford clinics, and I thought she would be perfect to have on here because, as I think I'd mentioned to you then, and I'll reiterate it now, Enterhealth, we started a podcast this year. It's called Treatment Redefined. And really the objective of it is to have really good, candid, authentic conversations around addiction, mental health, issues kind of in between there, really in the behavioral health world, but do it with sharp thought leaders. And I thought, I think you'd be great. And I know a lot about your practice, but I want our listeners to learn a little bit more. So I think it'd be kind of fun.
Absolutely.
To roll around on this together today.
Love it.
I think I could tell over that dinner we're a little bit of kindred spirits in the sense that we're trying to take more of a holistic, really deep-rooted approach to why people have the emotional issues that they do. And I felt like with the way you set your practice up and some of the things the different therapeutic modalities that you have, you're really geared to try to unearth and understand fully what are the root causes of what's going on with the patients that you work with. So we're going to explore some of that today. But maybe just to start off, can you just give people just a feel for your background, like maybe where you're from and just some of your educational background and how you got into this?
Absolutely. Well, first, I literally made a vow I would never go into psychology. I thought it was the stupidest profession ever.
Nope.
I am third generation entrepreneur. Our family, builders, developers from California, Monterey Bay, Central Coast.
Sure.
And that was my background. I went into acting, went to LA, had fun, got great jobs. And then I had a couple interesting experiences. And so I tried counseling for my first time. And the lady said, tell me about your childhood. And I genuinely didn't remember. And so I was honest and said, I don't really remember my childhood. She rolled her eyes, ended the session abruptly, and said, why don't you come back when you're not being resistant? And that was my first introduction to anything psychology and counseling. So my little inner vow of psychology is so stupid. I would literally never be a psychologist. Famous last words, right? So then I went to someone else, and she opened the Diagnostic Statistical Manual. So it's a big Bible of all psychology. And in 50 minutes of sitting with me with no psychometrics, no information besides just a teenage girl talking to her, she said, and then listed major diagnoses. And so I left weeping, calling my mom saying, oh my God, I now have evidence that I'm crazy. So then I went to a third lady, and she said, oh, you have an eating disorder. I'm fat. Are you judging me? And I was like, oh my gosh. Again, intake. This is my literal first encounter with the field of psychology, all of which were terrible and super unethical. And these people are licensed professionals. And so I had no interest. I figured this is a dumb field. And then I went to someone else, and she said, well, let's pray and ask the Holy Spirit if there's a reason you don't remember your childhood. And so I had some trauma memories that surfaced. And it was like, oh my goodness, there are actual unconscious roots to these issues. I have a good family. I come from a really good background. I'm from Monterey, California, very lovely, beautiful space. I went to prep school. I was in sports. I, have had every advantage of life. I shouldn't have, quote unquote, have all these medical, mental health. I had autoimmune condition issues. I had just had so many issues, and it all felt piecemeal, right? You go to the endocrinologist for the hypothyroid and Hashimoto's. You go over here to mental health. You go over here to the psychiatrist. You go over here to the doctor. You go over here to your priest or your pastor or whatever. And it just felt so scattered. And so I felt my heart leap of I believe that there's a more streamlined approach. People don't need to be chasing 1,000 different doctors. And so I went over and had to eat my own words, became a clinical psychologist, and studied the beauty and the intricacy of how we are actually made. And it was lovely to fall in love with our design. I believe that we're not broken. And there's not something wrong with us, but there are misalignments. And so in really diving deep, and that's been the last 21 years of my life. I hate aging myself. So let's just say I started at 10, okay?
That's good.
So it's been a journey of going from everything from clinical psychology, psychoanalysis, inner healing models, medical models, quantum physics, and then putting that all back together and saying, let's create a very streamlined approach that just like if you went to the chiropractor and he said, your fingers are tingling, instead of society trying to fix tingly fingers, let's go back to the root of the pinched nerve in your vertebrae. And when that bulging disc gets addressed, your tingly fingers naturally go away.
That's right.
So that's our goal at Crawford Clinics. We've created a streamlined approach to target where is the misalignment. What's the issue at the unconscious root that once that is realigned and put back in position, you don't have to be in therapy the rest of your life. You don't have to symptom reduce the rest of your life and manage. There will always be, something in a growth area, but those major misalignments that people are limping through life, I believe there's upgrade available. And so that's where we have trained our team. And now we have certifications to train coaches as well as therapists. And then we have an integrative medical doctor. And so she's doing at the energy level, not in a new age way, but in like a quantum energy way. And then all the medical ways that our body gets misaligned, the harmony gets disjointed. And so we can unpack that more. But that's been my journey of really respecting and restoring honor and dignity to how we're made, what goes wrong, and then the strategic process of upgrading people back to their original design.
Yeah. No, that's really unique. It's a very novel approach that you're taking. So kind of let's unpack it just a little bit. So Crawford Clinics, give me a feel for what are the professionals that are in there? Are they counselors? Are we talking about LCDCs? Are we talking about master's level therapists? Combination of the two, PhDs? What's kind of their training, certifications? Just trying to get a feel for what are the services and then who's delivering them?
Absolutely. Yeah. So we have several psychologists. We have our integrative medical doctor, which we're always looking for more. She's training more people. We have licensed professional counselors. Everyone is trauma informed. So they're all certified in trauma because whether it's a big case trauma or a low case, we believe trauma is usually the root at most of our misalignments. And then we have licensed clinical social workers, and then we have life coaches, and we have business coaches. We have couples counselors, family counselor, and then child play therapy, including EMDR, which has been really fun to get the little kids. And so putting the family unit back together and children growing up with, there's a symptom that's like subtle, and instead of waiting and going, they'll grow out of that, let's address it, resolve it, and get the family unit around health. And so that's been really rewarding. We're trying to take the same model of restoring self cohesion and see where we can adapt in culture to be as streamlined as possible. Like, where can we match your business needs, your executive team, your marriage, your children? So it's all wrap around. We'll work with organizations, go in, meet with their executive team, and we have Crawford Care, which is where an organization will partner with us for their mental health services and executive services so that they know the quality, that it's not just that basic lay counseling that you talk about your issues for 5,000 years and blame somebody else and I'm a victim, but really getting to the root issues so that then you get back to peak performance.
Yep. Interesting. Very interesting. Okay, so you hit on restoring self cohesion.
Yeah.
This is a treatment model. Give us a feel for what is this like? Maybe use me as an example, although I don't want you to fully evaluate me today. We might be here a while. But let's kind of walk through, what is this process like? Because I'm trying to kind of compare it in my mind to other modalities. A lot of the therapists that you meet, and I've been doing this for a while well, but I'm not a clinician. But, that's cognitive behavioral therapy, mindfulness, different. What are we talking about here, and how is this a little different in the process?
Absolutely.
What would the patient experience be like?
Yeah. So ironically, it's not actually creating something new. It's creating a way to conceptualize. What that means is kind of like how there's Western medicine and Eastern medicine, where Eastern is like trying to get your body to heal itself. Western tends to be a little bit more medication leading. Our job is, instead of just going right after the anxiety, the depression, the addiction, the relationship issue, going, what is the conceptualization, or what is the frame of the inner world? So we integrate cognitive behavioral because those skills are brilliant. We'll use DBT, dialectical behavior therapy. We'll use EMDR, a trauma-informed protocol. We'll use internal family systems. But all of those, if left by themselves, it's almost like they're competing with each other.
That's right.
And it's like you're shooting from the hip. All of them are brilliant, but this is the way to conceptualize how to put it in the right order.
Okay.
Again, we don't want people having to go to this person and this person and this person. We train extra on top of their master's and their doctorate. We train our team far more in our Restoring Self Cohesion process so that they learn, this is the reason that symptom has a functionality. We reduce shame and condemnation because it's like, I believe honor and dignity, even to symptoms people are mad at in themselves. So where I have an addiction, where I have, an emotional affair, or I have some kind of temper or something that's like, I hate that about myself. Instead of turning against the self with more willpower, you end up just doing whack-a-mole.
That's
and
right.
a house that divided against itself cannot stand.
Yep.
So if instead we equip their inner world with like, there's a reason that that's there. So what we start with is an internal board meeting.
Okay.
So not multiple personality disorder, although that is real, dissociative identity disorder. What we're saying is like there's a harmony on the inside. So let's say there's an orchestra.
Okay.
And there's the wind instrument, the percussion, the string instruments. And so when those are showing up in the right way, you feel like yourself.
Yep.
Like you're aggressive on the sports team, but not in your parenting. You're leading in work, but you're not overly domineering at home. Like the right part of you shows up. But when a part of self is disruptive, it's like a glitch on the inside, then instead of trying to force that to go away. So most of my executive clients will say, make that go away. How do I fix that? How do I stop that? As if it's like an outlier, something outside of me that I'm fixing and making it go away, instead of where did I learn that and how was that adaptive at that time in my life?
What do you find most often? Where or the origins of some of that?
So, two, I believe abandonment and shame, the fear someone else is going to leave me, and then the shame, there's a reason they left me. There must be something about me.
Does it go back to early adulthood, childhood, the abandonment type issues?
I mean, every person unique is fascinatingly nuanced, but I do think that within that first 6 years of life, most of our core beliefs, kind of like wet cement, that our original programming is set, and that becomes our neural pathways. And then everything builds on top of those existing filters, beliefs, templates, relationship dynamics.
Right.
And so before we know it, we're co-partnering and co-creating a lot of the patterns and dynamics in our life. And so if you think of it like at birth, we have a full committee. So all the parts of self are like ready to do their little assignment on the inside. So I have an aggressive, good side, and I have a sweet, nurturing side. I have a learner side. I have a very quiet, contemplative side. I have all these different sides, and kind of like in business, you want the right person sitting in the right seat, right?
Yep.
But at some point, we're going to believe something that makes us feel ashamed, inadequate, afraid of abandonment, rejection. And so then it's like that committee member goes into like a closet. And then another part of self, which we call your soul, which just means your mind, will, and emotion, that learns to be a chameleon. This part now steps in as a false self, as I will adapt to my environment so that I don't get rejected, so that my failure and shame and inadequacy don't get shown up, right? And then the real me is back here in a closet, and you're going to be in some form of addiction there. You literally have to be, because no matter how much your spouse can say, I love you, no matter how many accolades you get at work, no matter how many achievements and doctorates you get, it will never feel like enough when a part is disconnected from your conscious committee. So we call that the unconscious mind.
Okay.
So this part that's in a closet, that side is always feeling self-pity, alone, unwanted, not good enough, inadequacy. So like metaphorically, if it happens a lot of men don't feel blessed and honored by their dad. They're not brought into manhood. And so it's like a boy on the inside, metaphorically, that's just longing for that approval of I am enough. And when that doesn't come, then it's natural to have some kind of a false comforter to meet those emotional needs and make them feel better. And so we might have emotional affairs, right? You might have tempers where it's like, wait, I'm easily threatened if you're not automatically respecting me. You might go into workaholism, or it might be a substance, something that's medicating a place of pain because there's a misalignment. So life isn't going to that area, even if your spouse, your kids, your people at work are telling you all these great things, it just feels hollow. So the quickest way for me to discern if you have a committee member out of alignment is when you hear good things, does it register? Does it fill up your inner world? Or does it feel like, well, that's nice, thanks, but, and the immediate but is the response? Then you know you have a false self that's defending and overcompensating where I don't actually believe I'm good enough.
And it's really interesting how you're breaking that down. Humans are complex. You know, there's so many factors that go into it, and biologically we're all different, but we also are raised all very differently. We have different emotions. It's a complex issue to treat. I mean, I've watched this the last 17 years in Enterhealth. This is not an acute issue that you can just patch up and give some medication and move along.
Right.
It really takes time you got to untangle it. You kind of got to take the dirty closet, lay everything out, and try to re-put it back together, which takes time.
Exactly.
So it's a process. Over what period of time would you be working with a patient? I mean, so someone comes in, you're going to do the evaluation, I assume. And so through this evaluation, you're making a lot of these determinations, right? I'm actually kind of curious on that point is how are you looking at where my deficiencies might be, where I may be out of alignment? Or is it through your proprietary evaluation you're able to ask questions over the course of one evaluation or two to where you can kind of put the sight picture together?
Absolutely. So everything is a spectrum, right? So if it's really intense, non-functioning depression or addiction or anxiety, like crippling, that's going to look very different time frame than someone who's like, hey, I'm an executive. I just have some procrastination issues, distractibility, adult onset ADHD out of nowhere. Like, what's going on? Why can't I do work-life balance? Why am I burning out so easily when I actually love my job? You know, why am I acting out in these weird addiction ways that's not my heart, that's not my character.
Sure.
So a lot of my clients tend to be on the side of good to great. So when we're vetting, there's different therapists, psychologists, and executive coaches. Mine are, if there's something inside that you're like, I know I have greater potential and I want to maximize that. Then my proprietary process is we create the internal board meeting, and then we identify, like at the middle of the page, what are those like low-hanging fruit symbols to me that like I'm not okay. Not like burning building type terrible, but like I'm just like irritable. I'm scrolling. I'm staying up. I'm ruminating. I just feel like about to have a heart attack. I'm cutting people's heads off verbally. Nobody ever does that. What is that symptom to me? And then we go down, and because I've been doing it for so long, I'll pretty quickly start to evaluate where is their defenses, what are they defending and protecting, right? And so that's sometimes adaptive. So rapport-wise, I have to remind people you have free will, and I'm not going to take away anything that works for you. We're going to actually upgrade so your whole system is robust versus relying overly on your grit and your work ethic because you have gutted your way through life, and that's not the only way. You can still be super successful, but also enjoy quality time and laugh and have fun and go have hobbies and interests. So like one of my favorite clients, he was, family was, I think his dad was like in the steel mills, like grew up very blue collar and grew up as a little boy. Like, I'm going to make sure my kids have a legacy. Like, I'm going to make sure they have a nest egg and they are provided for, they have college. So he has worked his way up, like brilliant businessman. And so now he has several holdings and he's miserable. Like his kids are ungrateful. He doesn't like being around his wife. He just wants to go watch the news or scroll social media. He takes dinner in his study. Like he just finds everybody get like under his skin. And he's like, I've worked way too long to have a life that I actually don't love. I'm super successful and I don't have anything to show for it, like emotionally or hobbies or anything. And so we went back and we found out, oh, when you made that inner vow as a kid, I will make sure, right? So in the inner world, it's like there's scripts or resumes, and the parts of self are fulfilling those no matter how old, until we go back and reset that.
Right.
It's still running in the background, just like code in a computer.
Sure.
It's the original processing system. And so when I was able to go back and help him process, and that's part of Restoring Self Cohesion, you'll bring that member forward and say, hey, you have permission now to relax. I know you've been striving. I know you've worked really hard and it feels like it's all on you and everybody's ungrateful and unappreciative. But let's reject that lie and let's embrace truth. Yep. And so we bring that part back to the committee. It's more of a process than I'm describing. But when he did, it was like a fog came off his eyes and he went home and he was like, oh my gosh, I've been blaming my kids for being ungrateful. What if I've actually been kind of disengaged and they're responding to me? So he started doing one-on-one dates. He started doing, I think it was like baseball with his son and doing cars with his daughter, which was super cute. So he found interest to connect with them versus he would just try to expect them to say, what's going on in your life? Good. Almost like a status report with an employee. Yeah. It wasn't going well. And then he started dance lessons with his wife. And then we said, okay, let's get you together because I believe holistic. So we got him with a good investment strategy team and they secured the legacy funds for the kids. So he got to start investing again. He didn't realize that because of his inner rule since childhood of I have to strive, I have to make more money, I have to secure this, it's all on me, he was becoming resentful and bitter and ungrateful that everybody was wanting something, and it wasn't actually true.
Wasn't true.
Right?
Yeah.
And so when we secured that money, located everything, and I came alongside of him in that journey, now he was like, oh my gosh. And we introduced him to Lion's Den. It's an investment group. And he was able to start investing again and felt alive instead of plateaued where he was creating a glass ceiling, limiting himself, but blaming his family.
Right.
But it wasn't conscious.
Yeah, yeah.
So instead of destroying his family, a few sessions, that wasn't long, and then we put him with the right team around him. And now he's like giving me status updates on the businesses. He's, and he'll just come back for updates like, here's what I'm doing. I'm loving it. And so it's really fun.
That's pretty interesting. I mean, change can be hard, particularly when you're dealing with things that have been like embedded in your life, maybe for long periods of time.
Yeah.
So there's probably a process to that. Do you notice with, say, this example of this client, as they start to have that fog removed, then they're encountering situations where I would think, and I'm probably not using these terms right, where the deep neural pathways would want to immediately take over, but now you've installed or realigned, let's say, in such a way that, hey, I've got maybe a new road to take on this, so I can handle these things differently.
Yeah. So the fun part is I believe that we are pre-wired to be good. Okay. Yep. So what that means is I believe we're made to bond and attach, to work hard, to do these things. When our true self is leading and it's conscious, I believe who we are shines through. But wherever I have an unconscious belief of I can't trust others, I can't trust me, either of those beliefs, it causes us to regress or hide true me. And then the false self. The false self, think of it like an orphan. And it self-protects. It's bitter, it's sharp, it's resentful, it's people-pleasing and schmoozy in a hollow way, not in a genuine, I care about you, how are you actually? Yep. And so that's where a lot of people's knee-jerk reaction, that they're like, man, why do I go to counseling? Why do I go to coaching? Why do I do these things? And I still have that like edge that comes out of me. I'm still kind of sharp or dismissive, or I still have these inner narrative that I'm like, man, that's not very kind, Right. And so when we've switched it, the coolest thing is most of my clients don't feel anything during our work together. They later come back and they're like, I didn't have a reaction. Like I didn't blow up. I didn't have fear or anxiety. I didn't have a panic attack. Like I stayed confident. I felt like a in-charge adult. Yep. Like another client, brilliant founder, CEO, and he would walk into the boardroom and amp himself up. He had done tons of coaching in the past. So he was like mindset work, and yet he would still feel like the kid having to prove himself and qualify himself to be in that room.
Sure.
And so he would sweat and his adrenals were jacked up and he was like burning out. And it wasn't fun to lead the business that he's the founder of. Right. And so when we were able to go inside and go, oh, you're in 6th grade. You felt humiliated by that teacher. You felt like you were behind. There was some learning differences. And in that moment, there was a script created. I am not smart enough. I cannot do this. True self, step back. And the imposter stepping in front to compensate, I am smart. I do have what it takes. And he would bow up and he would try to impress people and they would always see through it. And he felt like just such a fraud. And that's stressful.
Yep.
That depletes our energy reserve. And so when he was able to switch that, we identified that 6th grade memory, the part of self holding that. And it's like you're rewriting the code metaphorically. And that part comes back to original design and his soul steps down, no longer being a defender. Then he came back and he's like, I didn't have to amp myself up. For years, I've had to do all this mindset work. I've had to visualize. I've had to do all this. Like I just organically felt like I am the owner of this business. I am smart and qualified. And he felt like he belonged in the seat that he had earned. So those are those moments where a lot of times my clients don't feel anything during it, but they come back and they're like, whoa, internally something shifted and I don't have to work so hard anymore.
Do you think we're all a little bit out of alignment?
Yes. Myself included.
I just had to ask.
Of course.
Because you mentioned, we're all born basically with a sense of good, right?
Yeah.
And I'm listening to you unpack this. And as you go through life, life is life, right?
Yes.
You've got all sorts of factors that influence you as you grow up. And some are good, bad, in between. But we're probably all a little bit out of alignment to an extent, right?
Yeah.
So patients that are coming to see you is, hey, you're giving them a way to look at this and help them get back into alignment. Now, once they're there, you're basically saying, listen, they've learned the skills to sustain moving forward to an extent,
For the
right?
most part.
Probably coming back in from time to time, hit new avenues they hadn't seen, and you go back in and help them get back into alignment, right? A little bit of a process.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me ask you, just kind of jumping around on this, where do you feel like, because you've mentioned soul a few times, and I'm curious, and deeply, on a personal level, I'm kind of curious, where does the faith component come into this in your mind?
Yeah.
How do you approach that with your patients?
Absolutely. So our clinic, on the inside, many of our providers are Christian, and so that's our faith. We try to be hospitable to offer the comfort level of whatever our clients are asking for. But when we're asked, and if somebody wants that, then we'll integrate faith. So for us, I'll picture your body as like your earth suit.
Okay.
And so that's the neurological hardwiring hormones responding to both the soul and the spirit. So to break that down, the soul being my human mind, will, and emotion that's been impacted, hardwired based on my life experience on this planet, right? So we learned to, in America, drive on the right side of the road. We learned to not pick our nose in public. We learned to not belch at the table. We have social norms. I speak English because the people around me spoke English. Right. I also picked up family dynamics and unspoken rules and norms and roles that we all just kind of pick up, right? And so that's the soul. It's my human mind, my human will, and my human emotions. Okay. And then I believe you have a spirit man. So that's your true eternal self. When people talk about the soul, I actually think often they're really meaning their spirit. That's the eternal you that you feel the most grounded and like yourself. So the feeling comparison of if you're driving in a car and you're on a back road and your hand's out the window and you're just so at peace and you feel centered and grounded.
That's your spirit.
That's your spirit.
And do you believe that's the way God made you?
Yes.
Yes. That's your true, authentic self.
Yes. Absolutely. And so when we're living from our spirit and our spirit is forward, you know who you are. You have confidence, you have clarity, you have vision, you feel purposeful and agency. That's who you are. But wherever your spirit believes a lie, again, I can't trust others, so I need to pull back and protect myself, put up walls. Yep. We call them heart walls. Or I am not good. I can't trust me. I am bad. So usually that's about age 2, where shame and autonomy steps out, right? Where we've been kind of coddled and loved on. And then now it's our first experience of trying something on my own. And when it doesn't go well, which most of life is not perfect, and you didn't even have to be abused. That's the crazy part. Kids can just internalize a parent having a bad day and think that's about them, right? Nothing bad, terrible had to actually happen. And so that was someone like me where it was I had a good family. This doesn't make sense. But if you think of misalignment, then it makes tons of sense. Just like I don't have a character flaw if I have to go to the chiropractor and my leg got hurt as a kid and I've been compensating and walking funky and that threw my hips out. and then my spine's out, and then now that's affecting my cranial. And
Right.
so that's going to affect cognitive processing.
Yep.
If you see it without the stigma of like something's wrong with me, it's more just a misalignment. We believe a lie. So the soul steps in as your spirit man or true self abdicates.
Okay.
When that happens, it's like a pinched nerve. And now life has symptoms. You're not going to function from your true self. You'll feel like an imposter. You won't feel in love with your spouse. I do want to highlight that. A lot of our clients, they fall in love with their spouse. It's such a great euphoria. And then the kids come, the stress, the work, blah, blah. And a lot of times these subtle resentments and projections, right? Kind of like I was saying with my former client, that the belief that nobody's looking out for me, I'm not cared about, the baby's getting all the attention, I'm taken for granted, unappreciated, unseen, on both sides, right? And so when that happens, think of your heart disconnecting. I'm not appreciated. I'm not loved, right? So your spirit goes back, the part of you that actually fell in love with your spouse and with your children. And then the soul is not loving. It is selfish. It is the flesh, the sin nature that is very egocentric. And so then people will be like, well, I just don't feel anything for my spouse. I don't feel in love with them. I want to have a new life. I just want to escape this life. If we can do an internal board meeting and readjust some of those things, we have seen marriages restored really beautifully. We've seen parents come back and actually engage their ornery children. Sometimes the kids are difficult and they're able to repair that relationship because they are operating from their spirit or their true self instead of the high functioning, compensating, tired, weary soul that's kind of selfish and bitter and resentful, to be honest.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about myself.
No, it's fascinating. And when I listen to things like this and other people that I've talked to kind of in our space, one of the things that keeps coming to my mind is so much of this could be applied really in the formative years, through parents, like new parents, and them learning, say, actually just newly married people, those relationships, couples relationships, new married individuals, then they have their family, how to be a great parent, how to be as good a parent as you could be, so you lay down the right foundations for your kids at an early age. It feels like this application could be great just in schools and in churches and in different ways,
Exactly.
maybe even prior to the point where you have to necessarily go in and seek out, say, individual therapy. There's an education and an understanding that I think could be applied from a very, very early period of time.
1,000%. So that's our nonprofit.
Okay.
It's called We Flourish Together. The first half is the psychoeducation in society, because there's a lot of mental health that I believe actually will induce more narcissism if we're not careful. It's very self-indulging. We're seeing a lot of this hypersensitive, hyper-emotional, I need a safe place, as if society needs to build around the individual.
Okay.
And that's not actually in the long run going to be good for anybody, the individual in particular, because it's keeping people in misalignment instead of helping heal the original wound, trauma, belief, not belonging, whatever's happened, that they're staying in a regressed place and not addressing it and standing into their spirit man. And so our goal is to bring positive mental health. We're going to do it through education, social campaigns, especially with AI. There's commercials for having the robot put the baby to sleep and the parents stand at the door because it's a commercial. And so they're, look at him being put to... The hardest client I've ever worked with in my entire career, which is over 20 years, was a gal that her mom was very brilliant. And so her mom created this net monkey type barbed wire. It had cloth over it, so it was soft, but she put it in the crib, and then that was what held the bottle. Okay. So instead of the mom or the dad picking up and bringing attunement, the baby turned over and fed herself. The fascinating thing about lack of attachment, lack of attunement, is our mirror neurons, our cognitive development, failure to thrive. So the comparison being, in Romania, they had tons of orphans when communism came in. And so at that point, the babies had enough food, they had enough water, they were taken care of, they were snuggled, diapers were changed, physical needs met. Viable, healthy babies went into failure to thrive, which means you can become mentally retarded or die from lack of attachment and attunement, eye contact. Wow. So the research of even the still face experiment of someone being on their cell phone or tablet while the baby is trying to attach and attune. And so in a society where AI is here, and we can't stop that, we need to recognize how do we properly attach to infants, to children, to give them proper identity and all of their emotional needs. So they're not adults on college campuses thinking that they need their emotional needs met as if they were children, right?
Yeah.
We need an appropriate age development.
Yeah.
And as a society, that's really important in the hour we're in. And then the second side is funding good psychotherapy, depth work like what we do for vulnerable populations who can't afford it.
Yep.
So human trafficking survivors, refugees, those aging out of the foster care system, and domestic abuse survivors.
Okay.
So there's others, but those are kind of our key categories that we want to honor, because a lot of times when they're getting therapy, they might be with a government worker who's seen 12 people today.
Right.
They're tired, they're overwhelmed, they're stressed. They're not getting like a healing therapeutic respite.
Right.
Like the amount of trauma that's required
Yeah.
for that. So that's our nonprofit.
No, I love it. I love it. So you've been doing it for 20 years.
I've been doing
Therapist.
therapy for 20 years, yeah.
So 20 years is an interesting time period to be doing it, because we've had, like you were just hitting on, a lot of the technology advancements have come along during that 20 period. You know, I've got 3 children, 23, 22, and 18, and my girls were really on the outer cusp of being able to grow up without necessarily having all of the technology right in front of them. So they got to play a little bit like the way I think a lot of children my age got to play growing up. You know, they were actually using creativity, and there was a lot of interfacing. This generation growing up right now, you know, that's young, they're growing up with the phones right in front of them and the tablets and all the entertainment, and not as much of that attunement, I think, to mom and dad.
Right.
So the timing of being able to address this seems like it's almost perfect. I don't know what the repercussions of all those things are, but I can't imagine them being good, because I think at a basic human level need, we have to have, like you were talking about with the babies and being fed, they need to be with you. They need to know, I mean, you're their safety, their security, and they have to attach to you. And I think when you maybe gloss over, though, not really gloss, but you miss those opportunities, I don't know what those downstream emotional consequences are. We may be just now starting to see some of them.
Absolutely.
I wanted to kind of hit on some of that with you, because you know you've been doing this for a while, and you're in actually an interesting part of the Metroplex too. I would call it kind of over in that Keller area, correct? South Lake, Keller, kind of more of one of the like higher performing pressure cooker probably areas of the Metroplex, right? And I was having dinner last night with some folks that were from the Park Cities, Preston Hollow area. And we were just getting into a very interesting discussion around, like, what are you seeing with these families? And it's so much pressure not only on the parents themselves, but on the kids. Yes. And they're, you know, on the surface, right? They're in great environments. They're in great neighborhoods. Kind of like you were talking about with some of your examples. It's maybe as a father or a parent, you feel like you're doing everything right. Yeah. I've provided, right? And this generation growing up, say my age and people a little older, you know, I'm raised by a baby boom generation. You know, I like to tell people I was raised by a Marine from Abilene. We raised a certain way. And, you know, but this generation kind of coming up, it's a little different. Like how I interact with my kids is a little different than maybe how I interact with my parents. Not that it's good or bad, it's just different. Yeah. But when you look at some of these demographics that you work in, what are you seeing here? What's going on? What are like the root cause issues that you feel like are hurting these families, hurting the moms and the dads and the kiddos? What is it that's really driving a lot of these behavioral challenges? Yeah. Reason I ask it is it's been on my mind, you know, since last week with everything that happened with Charlie Kirk, and just, you know, ad nauseum, it seems like the sight picture of this troubled youth that is distracted into gaming and all sorts of stuff. We got identity issues. These are issues I didn't necessarily weren't in my face growing up, right? But now they're everywhere. And maybe it's exacerbated by media too, to an extent, because it's in our face. But I do think a big portion of it is real.
Oh yeah.
And so I'm just trying to get a feel for what is it you're seeing on the ground with the families that you're working with, and what do you think are the root challenges that, like us as our community, because I think it starts in the household with mom and dad and community and build out from there, that's going to allow us to make material change in helping this youth be able to grow up and be independent and hopefully have families of themselves if they can, and leave a generation behind better than the one they came into.
Absolutely. So there's a million things we could say, but if we boil it down, I would say one of the biggest factors is we have become so goal-oriented in something that we stop being fully present with ourselves and fully present with our spouses, with our kids, with our family unit, or at work. And so without being fully present, because your phone can give you all of your emails, like your watch can give you every update. You are constantly on. And so without a digital detox, again, that's kind of the stewardship of technology happening so fast.
That's right.
That as humans, we just absorb and take in and we adjust, and we're brilliant. We're able to do that. It's really fascinating, our ability to adapt. But the problem is there's always a blind side that if we don't know how to steward it, then there's a cost.
That's right.
And so when a family becomes, okay, we have to get them into college. We have to get him into career. I mean, one father was flipping out because his 5-year-old had poor table manners. And he's like, how are you going to apply for a job? And it's like, he's 5.
A lot of pressure on that 5-year-old.
It's a lot going on. He's literally 5 years old. Yeah. And so like the lack of presence, I think, with ourselves causes us, without realizing it, to miss the nuance of personhood and presence in the moment.
Yeah, being able to be present is huge.
Fully. And it's hard because people are physically there. They're physically sitting in the car with them. They're sitting at the dinner table with them. They're going to the restaurant. They're going to the amusement park. We're going to Maui together, everybody, and you will like it. And we're here. But if we, as the adult, don't disengage, digital detox, check in with our own heart. I had a day, I know this might sound weird to your audience, but just watching everything on social media, I stepped away yesterday and I was like, I think I just have to cry. The vicarious trauma of watching a human being be taken and then people laugh about it.
I'll tell you.
I can't. I literally can't comprehend a world that can mock a father and a husband. Even if you don't agree with them, that's a human. That is a literal human being. And now a whole society has seen a public assassination. And psychologically, I don't want my heart to grow cold. No. I don't want to become numb to reality on any political front.
I agree. That's one of the things that bothered me. I mean, on so many levels, and it was a horrific thing to say. But with technology, I'm on a big, giant text string with my family. And before I had even seen anything, I see these texts coming through and, little eyes and young people are seeing things that I wish they never would have seen. Right. And some of the images out there and videos were absolutely horrific. Yeah. And, I'm an adult. My kids are just becoming adults, and I was having a really hard time with it. And frankly, it bothered me. I would say for a good 2 or 3 days, I kind of just carried it around. And I don't know that, it's traumatic to see. It's probably it's like I was talking to my father, he was a Marine, served in Vietnam. It's like you're seeing things in war that you're going to carry the rest of your life. Absolutely. Right? Your eyes can't unsee those experiences. Right. And it made me sad that, my little 18-year-old boy, I guess he's a man now that he's 18, but his eyes saw those things. And those images will never go away. Right. But beyond that, what bothered me even more about it was just I found myself scrolling through the comments, reading what people would just have the audacity to, hide behind a screen and say, because I think they think that's, that they can do what they want when they're anonymous to some extent. But it feels like there's a desensitization, if I'm saying that right, amongst all these things. And it's a little troubling because it's a very emotional issue that just happened. It's a life that just disappeared, leaves a family behind. Right. And my kids, just for the sake of this, knew a lot about him because he targeted the youth. They've been following him for years. They were devastated to see this happen. Right. And I think I'm like probably many millions of other people. I found myself just scrolling through, watching video after video after video. I went through it most of the weekend just watching how he handled a variety of issues. And I think he handled a lot of that, it's my personal opinion, with a lot of dignity and respect. And you just eliminated one of the brightest minds that's probably walked the face of the earth. Yeah. Just like that. Right. And I'm wondering, what do we think causes people to do things like that? Yeah. And then have a whole onslaught of people, even, Hollywood type figures all the way down to just people wanting to hide behind a screen to write comments, feel like it was justified or it was okay or you could even mock it.
Oh my gosh.
Something wrong with that.
Yes. I think we can go back to Bandura's research decades and decades ago, where social cognitive modeling, that when you show children Bobo the doll, the cute little doll, then they play with it, they're nice, or they ignore it, they don't even notice it. And then they take the children out and they have an adult punch Bobo the doll, and then the children come in and they punch Bobo the doll. You didn't introduce that until now. It's a concept, and now I've modeled that behavior, right? And so I was getting my car worked on yesterday, and I was just seeing the commercials for shows, and it was all violent and drugs and broken family and just like very horror themed. And if you look at the movies, the video games, the content, so the interesting thing is, I love free speech, but if we don't ever make a stand on what media is allowed, then it really, you're growing up with this, right? Like children have grown up with video games where killing is normal. They've seen it in movies. So the breach of it being real, but I'm still watching it on a tablet, I think psychologically it must be very commingled.
Right.
And so I've tried to be a lot more removed from social media. That's why I think in a good way it impacted me, because I don't want to become cavalier about a human life being
100%.
assassinated.
Right.
Ever. On any aisle, nobody. Like, that's just not a good thing for a society to become okay with. Rome was soon destroyed after the Colosseums when they're publicly laughing and mocking when Christians were being eaten by lions. Like, there's a destruction of society that comes shortly after you destroy the value of human life.
That's right.
On any political aisle.
That's right.
So if we don't ever take accountability, like we have the rating system for like nudity and violence and all of those things, I think there needs to be a review of what are we allowing in video games, what are we allowing for children to be exposed to,
Right.
Because psychologically, I don't know that they're seeing the difference. And now we're seeing the 20, 30-year-old that's
Right.
grown up with that, and their conscience seems to be seared that it's funny or mocking rather than a human that they're connecting.
I totally agree. And I guess I try to simplify these things and think, how do you really make a material impact on this? And to me, it goes to the family unit. And that's easier said than done, to be honest with you, with technology and kids and having had 3 of them. And as they go through their, teenage years and young adulthood, it's a fine line there between keeping, say, the phone and things out of their hands and then like socially ostracizing them.
Yeah.
Right? Because this is how these kiddos communicate. And so I feel like as a family unit in the communities that we run around with, families have to be somewhat aligned on some of this. And it's some responsibility there, I think, in those family units. That's why I think like the work that you do, the types of work that we do in Enterhealth with our patients and families, you're trying to help teach some of these parents, including myself. I feel like I'm always learning, actually. I learned more as my kids gotten older than I did when they were younger, that's for sure. Yeah. But they need to learn how to really be a good parent and keep some of these things at bay. Even though it might make the child unhappy, it's good for them.
Can I share a very clear illustration?
Yeah.
So a lot of families want to be a friend instead of a parent.
Right.
Because they want to be liked. So the generation before, it's like, you guys are mean, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Like, that was not a nice parenting. So the pendulum swung too far into permissive parenting. So here's an illustration of a very real CEO. And she was the party house. The family was like, as long as you're doing it in our house, it's totally fine. They were affluent. And so she would come home totally high, her shirt backwards. She's vomiting. She's getting raped in her bedroom. But her parents were just like, oh, she's just like hanging out with the kids. Like, they didn't ask, they didn't check in. They were physically in the home where their daughter was becoming addicted and violent things were happening to her at such a young age. And that's one of many stories I've heard. Fortunately, she's successful and doing well today, but she had to go through addiction withdrawals for a really long time, because when any addiction of any kind gets introduced really young, that becomes your coping.
Right.
And so to now have to actually like develop a coping process separate from any kind of addiction is really challenging.
Absolutely.
And so she looked back at that going, I can't believe my parents didn't love me enough to say, get the F out of my house. Like, what are you doing? What, like, where's my daughter? Is she okay? Like, they were so permissive and indulging and wanted to be liked so much that they didn't actually parent or protect her. I have never, ever had a client look back at a permissive parent who was like, well, I don't want us to not, I want you to like us. We'll give you the cell phone. Every single time they've looked back and gone, man, that actually told me I wasn't worth protecting. And that was the opposite of what the parents wanted, right? The parents wanted to be liked, but the child said, I am going to literally run off a bridge and watch. Are you actually going to catch me? Like, are you going to protect me? Are you going to put some kind of boundary on my life? And when you don't, it tells me you don't love me.
Right.
Every time. That's a multiple. That was just an extreme example of a client that I've really enjoyed working with. And so she's rebuilding her life, and it's beautiful to watch now, but she had a lot of really tough years of addiction because nobody was there to create those safeguards.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, it's a little can be a little counterintuitive, but children like boundaries.
Yeah, it's actually conveys safety.
It does, right?
Inherent worth. The second story I'll say is after 10 p.m., no one needs to have their cell phone. Like, the bad things happen after 10 p.m. Like, I mean, we have people that I've worked with, a young lady that I think, I don't want to misquote, I think she was 12 or 13. And on Snapchat, she started getting DICK pictures from men.
Yep.
And so she was like, I don't know what to do with that. And my parents love me, but they're busy and they're in bed and I want to be liked. And the same girl, and it's happened multiple times to different people, but the boy will send something and say, hey, if you want to be my girlfriend, you'll do this for me. Send me a nude or whatever, right? He screenshots it because on Snapchat, the girl thinks, or the guy, it happens on both sides, but they'll think nobody can see this, right? Because the pictures disappear. If they screenshot it, then he blackmails her. This is super common. And then he says, if you don't give blowjobs to my lacrosse team tomorrow, then I'm going to spread this everywhere. All the teachers, the parents, everybody's going to see your nude picture that you're aggressing and sending to me. And so then she ends up in a compromising position at 11, 12, 13. Like, this is not a one-off. So when you were asking earlier, what is happening? After 10 p.m., no child ever, adults do not need to be communicating with technology after 10 p.m. because every horror story is usually
after 10 p.m.
After 10 p.m. And I don't know why. I'll literally just, at this point, I ask. I was like, oh, when was that message sent? 11:59.
Yep.
2 a.m. Okay, then we don't need it, right?
Yes.
Secondly, I would say the safeguard of having a family plan.
Okay.
Where there's a knowing that even though I can text and have fun with my friends, that there is somebody who is going to see and read these messages.
Yep.
We highly recommend that. Again, not popular. Kids don't like it. They can still talk to their friends, so they're not socially isolated and awkward. Yep. But there is the awareness. There is an adult who is going to be reading this.
Yes. Yes.
And the keystroke is another option where there are safeguards that you can see what the messages are for the ones that disappear.
Okay.
So that's another safeguard.
Very, very interesting. Love it. Okay, let's transition just a touch. I want to go back to a few things that you and I have talked about. We talked about it actually at our dinner that we met, which is, one of the things that we've tried to do in Enterhealth this year, and it started a few years ago, actually post-COVID, and just realizing that when it comes to like psychiatry in general, because in our space, which was providing residential and outpatient treatment for addiction, mental health, you have your therapy team doing all of the deep work therapy issues. Then there's let's call it the medical component, which for up until now and for many years has really been done by psychiatrists. Okay, now psychiatrists are medical doctors, but they're not necessarily trained in much really below the neck. And what's been fascinating is we've been doing some trainings on this starting last year into this year, and then we launched, there's different terms of it, but we call it kind of functional integrative psychiatry, which is the idea that we're going to, from a medical standpoint, really try to look at what are the root cause issues of why you're having the symptoms that you do. So when I talk to you and I listen about your approach and in your practices and how you guys do things, it is a perfectly aligned with what we're trying to do from a medical standpoint. Because there's the therapeutic deep work root cause, which can create, as you know, physical symptoms.
Yes, absolutely.
There's also medical things that are going on that if you don't look into them objectively, you could be diagnosing the wrong problem. And so, we had a on our previous podcast, we were talking to our integrative doctor, and I was going over this with her that, if you don't diagnose the right problem, then your treatment's going to be off the mark.
Yes.
Period. So
Exactly.
it kind of starts with, what are the problems we're trying to solve? Okay, if we can start there, then we're going to have the treatments that can solve these problems. We can develop the treatment plans and everything that comes therewith.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really interested in this space because in the medical side of what we do, from psychiatry, we don't look at anything going on.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm not that it hasn't worked to some extent, but it's arguable that it's made a giant impact because we still have tremendous psychiatric issues rolling across our land.
Absolutely.
And I find right now it feels like there's a tailwind. Maybe it's a part of the MAHA movement, but I also think it's just in general you're seeing more doctors try to get learned on what's really going on in your unique biochemistry.
Absolutely.
So let's start looking objectively at a set of tests that relate to mental health and emotional issues. And if we can understand what those biomarkers mean, and if there's deficiencies, what's the correlation and what we should do, then we might find out what's really the root cause of your symptoms. Instead of just treating symptoms with medications, can we actually understand what the root cause of those symptoms are in the first place? And my thought is that Western medicine is actually great at a lot of things, acute issues, surgeries, traumas, things that have happened, we can put you back together well. When it comes to more, say, chronic related issues,
Right.
and I'm going to put like behavioral health and mental health and addiction kind of in that category,
Sure.
I don't know that over time we've done as well of a job in that as we should have.
Right.
And so if you can bring some of this, the word alternative I think can be misinterpreted, but these novel, maybe even old school approaches, maybe the way medicine really should be practiced, but bring these newer ways of thinking to an extent together with the best of Western medicine,
Right.
I think you have a chance to maybe hit your target of what's really going on medically with these patients and be able to provide better treatments that hopefully in our space will allow them to be, in recovery in a more sustained way long term.
Exactly.
And I feel like the therapy part, the deep issues and the root issues you work on, combined with a psychiatrist, a medical doctor, a trained physician in the world with the same line of thinking, probably gives our patients the absolute best chance to have an accurate diagnosis and correct treatments.
Absolutely. For sure. So that's where at Crawford Clinics, our integrative doctor runs a brain scan at the beginning so that then we can target. And it's really cool because you'll do the trauma work where we've learned, just like you guys, to put the medical back together with the psychological. And so we've been ruling out where are there parasites, mold infestation, environmental toxins, inflammation, thyroid issues. Thyroid and diabetes are known precursors for mood disorders.
Right.
And it's egregious how many times people are put on a psycho farm without ever ruling out, like, is there a physiological health condition? Why your
That's
hormones
exactly right.
and your endocrine system are just jacked up? Are you in adrenal fatigue? Are you actually nutritionally deficient? Ironically, we eat so much food, but you may not have enough nutrition because we eat processed food that's been overheated. It's been metabolized in very odd ways. And then there's leaky gut. There's things that are causing our cells to be unhealthy. Our body is constantly inflamed. And so that will take away from cognitive processing.
100%.
And what most people don't know, because they'll usually go to Dr. Google first and then they'll come, right? And they'll say, here's my issue. I have this diagnosis. And we're like, cool, that symptom is very real, but let's find the original source of where that's coming from.
That's exactly right.
Not that ADHD is not real, but ADHD looks the exact same as someone who has anxiety, depression, and repressed trauma. So if we're not processing our traumas, anything that's making us uneasy, scared, overwhelmed, afraid, imposter syndrome, or things that are making us feel hopeless and helpless, then you're naturally going to have a glitchy brain. The brain can't process at a high level with focus, concentration, recall, and memory if it's flamed in the back
That's right.
and it's trying to suppress and whack-a-mole a bunch of things on the back end, so then you're going to naturally have a brain that's underperforming. Again, not saying ADHD is not real, but we need to be a lot more thorough and holistic
I couldn't agree more.
in addressing what is the source of that symptom. And if we address some misalignments internally, and then we deal with the addiction principle of phone addiction, media addiction, and then back to the little kids that are growing up with addiction. Media addiction is very real. And then you'll see withdrawal symptoms when you take away their tablet. Just like an adult that you take away their bottle, like little kids are growing up not being bored. And that means not being imaginative and creative or distress tolerance of, I have to deal with something I don't like, just like the rest of the world.
Right.
If you constantly indulge because you don't want to hear them upset, then you're actually regressing or keeping them stuck developmentally. And then adulthood gets real hard when there's a lot of delayed gratification and boredom and doing things you don't like, but it goes toward a larger goal.
Yep.
So we're enabling things at a very young age that are under-equipping them for adulthood.
I couldn't agree more with what you just said. You know, it's interesting. I was thinking about it, not to belabor it too much, but as I listened to a lot of the thinking by, like, say, Charlie Kirk, it made me think about some of the great philosophers, you know, the Marcus Aurelius and Plato and all those guys that lived back in really that time period that was pretty close to the time period that Jesus was around. And how, if you read some of their writings and their thinkings, they were so brilliant. So their depth of thought and ability to think and extrapolate was extraordinary. Yeah. And as I listened to Charlie, I thought, it's like a modern day philosopher, the way he thinks. But I also think it's a product of, I think he's a genius. I think there is truly, he was born with a beautiful brain, but he applied it, you know, and he used it. And I feel like so much of technology makes things a little bit easier, you know, and AI may help you get there more quickly. But I think we were given the brain for a reason, which is you got to use it. Yeah. You got to exercise it. And sometimes the answer isn't just, I got a question, I got the answer 2 seconds later. It's, you need to think through it. Right. And at the end of the day, when you go online and you look at everything that's in AI, it is what exists today.
Exactly.
So our human development and everything that we've created across the land has come from new ideas that haven't been thought up yet. That comes from the human brain. Yep. And nothing will be able to replace that. So I hope in due time we never really lose sight of the fact that we need to exercise that thing. It's the most powerful organ you got in your body. Agree. Is that brain.
Yes. We want it healthy.
Yes. Well, okay, I want to ask you just a couple of little final questions as we wrap up today. But as you look out from your vantage point, you've been practicing for 20 years. You built up Crawford Clinics. Y'all are doing, I know you outside of this, y'all are doing some extraordinary work, and I appreciate everything that you do. But as you look forward, what is it that you kind of see on the horizon of things that you're wanting to really pay attention to, that you think, you know, these are things that I feel like therapeutically we might want to examine more closely, or just opportunities you see in our field now? Just where do you look at your growth going forward as how you can help more people?
Yeah, I love that. I love asking the question that everyone else has learned to just get in a status quo. Like, where we as a society create a glass ceiling. So right now, Dr. Lipper, our integrative doctor, she is doing a pilot study on research on autism and brain development. And so with her protocol, starting to recognize improvements in autism. And then we've been using ethically sourced umbilical cord stem cells. And so combining that and putting that together with good trauma-informed therapy like Restoring Self Cohesion, it's been really fun to go, well, what else can we do? So a lot of my clients are either professional athletes, they're executives, performing artists. And so just the natural amount of like pressure that people have in those high-achieving fields, getting everything from the autism spectrum all the way over here into high-performing influencers. Right. So that's my joy, is getting to say, all right, there's a glass ceiling. Let's ask questions. Let's do research. We don't just shoot from the hip. We want to be clinical and experiential in all of our work. But then secondly, where can we advance and help people push that limit and use that brain more?
Right.
And then enrich their lives. So a lot of times, again, back to being goal-oriented, if people aren't careful, they can take for granted their loved ones. Like my first question to all clients, what would your loved ones say about how well you relate with them? They all say great.
Yeah, great.
Everyone says great. Good. Fine. Why do you ask? It's perfect. And I'm like, okay, what if we bring them in and we do a 360, just like you would do with your team?
Yep.
And we find little opportunities for growth. So my goal isn't just that you achieve, but that you thrive and enjoy family and you have a legacy. You're not only getting you there, but your executive team, your kids, your family, and then you have something to pass on to the next generation.
I love it. I love it. Well, I have thoroughly enjoyed having you.
Thanks.
Having you on today. I've enjoyed getting to know you, and you guys are doing some great work. So I look forward to continuing to work with you. And as we have some more of these discussions into the future, we'll probably have you back on and maybe deep dive on a few new issues downstream.
Sounds great.
Thank you for being on.
Thanks.